us and becoming an FDRP. It really is a growth area, and so that if you are wanting to join up, I think it's a good idea because there's been a lot of developments in the field of family dispute resolution and the field of family law. And we are going to find a lot of things changing in the next few years where family dispute resolution will be needed for not only parenting matters, which I'll describe a bit further, but also for property matters. So as I said, my name's Linda Kochanski and I've been a mediator for a very long time now, and it's my pleasure to head up the programs at College of Law. My specialty is family mediation and family dispute resolution practice. What is family dispute resolution practice, or what is being a FDRP, a family dispute resolution practitioner? Well, under the Family Law Act, there are a number of requirements that parties who have matters concerning their children have to go to a formal dispute resolution prior to making an application to court. And that's probably a very good idea. And so to prove that they have to get a certificate called the Section 60I certificate, and many of you who are family lawyers may be familiar with them, and they need to be signed off by an FDRP. As I said, I think the FDRP world will basically expand on that as we go along, because it's talk in the recent review that property settlement will be brought under that. We'll have a look at what we're doing today. So we'll go into a bit more detail about family dispute resolution practice and mediation. I'd like to talk a little bit more about our program and how it works and how it differs from other programs, the practicum requirement and what we mean by that, about accreditation, and that's talking about how to be registered as an FDRP, some start dates for the second half of the year so you can still join us, prior learning credit, what you can get credit for in this course, and questions on how to enroll. So if we have a look, I'm a little technologically not that great, but I think I can do it. So what we are, so as I explained, an FDRP is a mediator that specialises in family dispute matters, particularly at this time, parenting to do with children. As I said, I see the world expanding, and we do property within our program, and I think that will expand. Now, the interesting dichotomy is that we also have another system that runs in Australia called the National Mediation Accreditation System that accredits people who want to be mediators in general. They can be mediators in all sorts of aspects, but generally, mediators that want to mediate in tribunals, in government, neighbourhood disputes, commercial, and that's under what we call the NEMAS. So basically, not every mediator has to be an FDRP, and not every FDRP have to be a mediator, but we find that they do seem to interlink, and most FDRPs particularly are also mediators. The good news is, if you're interested in doing that and want to be an FDRP but also want to become a mediator, we can help you with that at the college. Because the first subject, and I'll talk about that in a moment, gives you all the training that allows you to go for the assessment to become an accredited mediator. So in that way, it's like 2 bites of the cherry, and it really does work really quite well. Now, the work we do is fascinating work. Mediation is all about allowing the parties to have self-determination. And this is even so much more important when you're thinking about working in the family area, where you've got children. Of course, whilst we have the family court, and it's always going to be there, if parties have their children, it should really be, if you're thinking about the children, getting the parents to make the decisions and making sure they consider the best interests of their children. And so that's the work we do. We work very much with parenting matters, but also more and more with property matters. Because as we know, unfortunately, the courts are a little clogged with lots and lots of matters. And a lot of people don't have a lot of assets. So to spend money and give them to lawyers, and I'll put my hand up, I am a lawyer, so I'm not saying don't pay the lawyers. What I'm suggesting is that more people are turning to resolve their disputes, both parenting and property, through the use of mediation. Being a mediator is a very fulfilling job. It is also something that's very empowering, and it gives you lots of skills that you can use for your interviewing, for your own dealing with in your other professional life, as well as personal life, to be honest. What kind of background do you need? Now, to become accredited, you actually need to have, there's a number of entry paths into becoming an FDRP, but what we say is that usually you have to have a legal background or a background of a social science background in terms of things like psychology or social work. Other degrees can be considered, but the Attorney General's Department has focused on that. The other entry point into becoming an FDRP is that if you have a national accreditation as a mediator and want to put the next layer as an FDRP on that. But usually you will find you will have a degree, and if you have any queries about your degree or your concern, do contact the college, because the college have a range of degrees they look at, but also they can be in touch and check in with the AGs as well. Now the colleges program. The colleges program, first of all, let me tell you that it's a graduate diploma in family dispute resolution practice. Now, out of the tertiary institutions that offer FDRP, we're really one of the few, or one of the only ones that offer a graduate diploma. A lot of the other tertiary institutions offer the 6 core units, the 6 core subjects that have to be covered in the form of short courses, but you don't come out with a graduate diploma. Through the college, you come out with a graduate diploma. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference, particularly if you're looking at qualifications. And it's also, I'll talk about later, how you can build upon that even more. Now, the program has been created to fulfill the goal. Couple of goals. We want it to fulfill the goal of becoming an FDRP, but we also want it to make sure that it's educationally sound and fulfills what would be equivalent to like a master's level in terms of the material that you're looking at. We basically teach it over 4 modules, and I'll talk about the 4 modules in a bit more detail. And we have a number of webinars that introduce and talk about topics. So within the course, it's about a 5-week module, and you have 3 webinars leading up to a workshop. There's 3-day workshops. So over the course of the time you're with us, which is usually semester 1 or semester 2, so say 6 months, you will come into one of our locations, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne or Perth, and have a 3-day workshop for each of the modules. Now, within those workshops, that's when we put everything into practice. They're actually practical exercises. You do role plays, you do intakes, we have discussions around the topics, and we graduate them. So you start off with the really basic stuff, we layer it on and do co-mediation, and then we add on things like the vulnerable parties, family violence, how to work with children, all the layers that you expect, but always do it in the form of role plays, as in real life scenarios. All the role plays are created from cases that either I have been directly involved in or colleagues have that give it to me information to make it a real life situation for you. And then basically the last subject, which is our capstone subject, really includes putting it all together, and it's a series of role plays with actors and making it realistically. To become registered as an FDRP, you have to complete either 6 core subjects or a graduate diploma, and you also have to complete practicum hours. Now, that means practicum means you have to be placement. There are 50 hours required as your placement, but within our course at the College of Law, we have been able to, with the approval of the Attorney General's Department, to include 30 hours of that practicum. So we have 30 hours of that practicum included in our clinical experience. So therefore, what practicum that you require, and I'll talk about that in a moment, is only 20 hours. So it's a lot less. It's a lot less for you to be able to look for, and you don't have to worry about looking for different types of matters and complex matters, because we do that with all within the college. Personalised feedback. When you're at the workshops, and I'm at one at the moment and telecasting from that, basically what happens is that not only do you have an instructor, which may be myself or one of the instructors state-based, we also have one coach for every 3 students that we have. Now, a coach is a very experienced, qualified FDRP who works with you, and some of these people have experience of, I'm talking close to 40 years. And so these people are hand-picked to work with our students. So you get one-on-one, really personalised feedback. You get oral feedback and you get written feedback from every workshop. You get written feedback on your assessments, and you also get a lot of oral feedback through the webinars about the whole course. We have 2 intakes a year, and then we're just in the we're in the 3rd subject for our semester 1, but we've still got semester 2, and I'll give you those dates in a moment. So, as I said, 4 core subjects and 20 hours of FDR practicum. So the 4 cores. But the beauty in what college has done is that if you want to be a studier, and we know there's a lot of people that want to, it really makes it quite easy to articulate into a LLM, the Masters of Law program. So you can get a Masters of Law majoring in family dispute resolution practice. And if you are a family lawyer, this could be something that really could appeal to you, because as you see there, you get your 4 hour, if you do your 4 core subjects and your practicum, and then pick 4 subjects from another practice area or another major, you have your LLM. So this graduate diploma gives you credit to move on to further study. Now, you may not want to do it immediately, and you probably don't, but if you do want it down the path, you have that ability. So it gives you that little bit of extra that is not, that you're getting your FDRP, so you're getting your registration as an FDRP, but you've also got the ability to build on that a little bit more if you need to. So, a little bit about the subjects. As I said, I'm looking for my, I lose my learning and I can't change. There we go. So there's 4 subjects there, and I might move myself down here for a little bit so that makes it a little easier for you to see that. So, first one's called FDRP1, and it's family law and mediation. Now, the little asterisk means that this subject is equivalent to if you went out and wanted to do just the national accreditation course, I said. And so this is the same training you would get. So if you finish FDRP1 and successfully complete the workshop, you can go on and be assessed and therefore be accredited to hold national accreditation and become a NEMAS accredited mediator. As it says, it introduces you to mediation. It throws you in the deep end. The students have often said that it's a bit daunting. I call it immersion therapy, because in the workshop, by the time you finish a 3-day workshop, you would have completed 9 role plays, either 3 as a mediator and 6 as a role player. And whilst it may sound, my goodness, it really sets the tone, because you get a real feeling for what happens in mediation. And it introduces you to the family law aspects and the FDRP obligations that you have. Now, with the FDRP2, that's children's matters, family law and family dispute. It's about how you become child-focused in your approach and how we apply the term best interest of the children into working as an FDRP. Within that subject, you learn about the impact of separation on children and children developmental ages and how separation impacts on children of different ages. You learn about the concept of a child-focused practice and a child-informed practice and what that means and how you can work with that. In terms of your skills building, you learn the advantages of doing an intake and the compulsion that you have to do an intake. So you practice doing an intake or an assessment of whether the parties are suitable for mediation. And then you do a child-focused mediation, focusing particularly on the children's needs And you do that as a co-mediation. So you have a buddy. And so that's learning how, because in the field of family dispute resolution, the best practice is a co-mediation model. So we practice that within that. FDRP 3 is called Advanced Family Dispute Resolution. And this is the one I'm teaching at the moment. This is the one that you learn about working with vulnerable parties in mediation. And that's parties that might have mental illness, substance abuse, some sort of trauma, but also the big one, family violence. Unfortunately, the type of work we do does have a lot of family violence threaded through. So you learn how to work with these type of complex matters. They're not the matters that walk into your door every day, as I was saying to the cohort here yesterday, but they are the ones that will impact on you as a practitioner. And so you will then also deal with how to work with them. And so again, in the workshop, the focus is on considering assessment and how you assess if parties are suitable for mediation. And you will do another intake, a couple of intakes, and then you will do a mediation with one of these complexities, but you'll do it as a different mode, which is called a shuttle mediation, where the parties are separated. And how do you work with mediation where the parties are separated? FDRP4, or the capstone in here, is the case management. And so what happens there is that your written assessments are all designed to be documentation you can use in practice. So intake documents, referral documents, a documentation that you will use as a mediator when you go out there. And so it's very much a practice, and it's learning to be a reflective practitioner, which means that you're looking at what practice you're doing and why things are happening, and so you can improve on that, or you can change, or you can develop. You're also doing property mediation within FDRP4. You're learning how property mediation and what the basic law around property, when it's not a family law property subject, but you're learning how property law and distribution is mediated. The workshop for this one is really quite fun. It's 3 days of mediations, and the mediations are 2.5 hours in length, which are very realistic in terms of where I work. I've done work. And so basically you have a mediation in the morning, a mediation in the afternoon with your coaches, as I've explained, and you're debriefed. The difference is we bring in actors. And so what the actors does is bring in a little bit of the real life situation, because if you just role play amongst yourselves, you get to know each other very well, and you tend to be nice to each other because you're on the same boat. But having an actor just shows you that realistic. So we have actors, and the marking's slightly different. We actually look at you in terms of becoming competent and what you need to work on when you go out to practice. It's a very exciting one, and you're able to see your 1, 2, and 3 put together as 4. So a lot of people really enjoy it. It's still intense, but they really enjoy that last one. So how do we deliver it? As I said, it's a lovely blended, and I think blended is the best way of doing these things. A number of the other people that offer this do it as short courses, but they do it as hits. What I mean by that, you sit in there for 5 days and you learn all the theory in 5 days. I really don't think you can do that. I really think you need to build upon it. And this is why I love the blended way of teaching FDRP. I'm also a director on the Mediator Standards Board, so we're always looking to make sure that training is really making sure that it fits what we need. And just recently at a meeting, we talked about the importance of blended, having that ability to read, reflect before you actually do, is really becoming what we want to be as our gold standard as mediation training. So what you do, you have readings, modules, and activities. You usually have 2 written assessments. One is a theoretical and one is always a reflection. And that reflection is not so taxing because it reflects on what you did in the workshop. The research one will be on the particular topics and are not essays as such. they're more like short answer questions. We have webinars rather than teleconferences. We do have webinars so that we have PowerPoints and there's interaction, so it's a little bit different. Our face-to-face workshops are 3 days per subject, and I've talked about that, their role plays, their mediations, and the wonderful coach's feedback. So FDRP 1, you run for about 5 weeks. Week 4 is when we have the workshop. Week 5, reflection. We start again. Now, once you've done all this, you need to get practicum. Now, college doesn't assist with practicum, and very few places do, training courses do assist with practicum. There are some people that do practicum within organisations, but they have a very limited, they have a cap on how many they take, and also they take at least a year to complete. With us, we would suggest you start looking. We're hoping, we give you some guidance and you can talk to your coaches who are in your locality. But the best way to start looking is to look at the Family Dispute Resolution Providers Register. I know that that's there at the moment and it continues to be upgraded, and then Family Relationships Online as well. If you are, and there's also a number of practitioners you may know, and a lot of people, if you're able to be, for example, a lawyer and you can get the parties in for mediation, there are a lot of coaches who come and coach with us, but also a lot of FDRPs are willing to come in and actually give you some guidance. Depending on where you are, there are different offerings, but when you join, we can assist you. But we strongly encourage you to start looking as you enroll. You can't do it until you finish FDRP 4, but it's nice to get feelers out to see what's out there. It can be difficult if you're in the city. It's much easier in the regional areas, but it's also just making those contacts. You don't have to do the whole 20 hours with one provider, so you can do 10 and 10 with another, or a case with one or a case with the other. And as I said, some states are easier than others. For example, in Queensland, Bond University has a clinic and that they offer to College of Law students. So, but they do charge. And you will find that some supervisors will charge, some won't. So do start looking and having a look who does and who doesn't offer. But certainly we will talk about that further when you enrol. But just to know that we do not guarantee it because we don't have the infrastructure, but we're able to direct you to where to start. Now, accreditation is through the Attorney General's Department. And so when you finish doing your coursework and your practicum, we will give you a graduate diploma, which you send in. You will require to have a, excuse me, a working with children's certification. In Queensland, where I come from, we call it a blue card. Where you're at, be different things. You will also be required to do a federal police search. And once that's done, you put that all into the Attorney General's Department. They check it all through. Not a big ceremony and no real certificate, but you get an email saying your number is. And so that's the number you use when you have to sign off on certificates. You will need a complaints mechanism. So if that's your professional body, you have to be assured that they will handle any complaints that you may have from mediation. If you want accreditation as a nationally accredited mediator, basically, as I said, there you do an assessment course. Excuse me, I'm just going to mute myself while and colleges offer assessment courses in Sydney and Brisbane. If you're somewhere else and need to do the assessment, you can contact college and we can assist you. But Sydney runs it 4 times a year and Brisbane runs it 2 times a year at the moment. And we can talk about that. You can get your accreditation registration after doing FDRP 1. And then you can become nationally accredited. Again, that's more just filling in paperwork. and handing over some money, and you will be directed in those workshops about how that can happen. Career prospects. Okay, I'll be honest. If you asked me about 2 years ago, I would say, I've only got 1 or 2 people I know that make a living out of being a mediator. Now I can say, honestly, I've got about that many that have left careers as either a psychologist or a lawyer and have set up Shingle as a mediator. It's like any industry, you have to get in, and once you're in, referrals will flow. I think also, to be perfectly frank with you, is that once we've got the changes coming through the Family Law Act, and that it looks like what the recommendations that were from the review, that property matters will require some sort of dispute resolution, I think we will find the market changing again. Because I don't think, because people will have to be accredited. At the moment, a lot of people are doing property matters who are mediators, or may not even be mediators, but maybe have had experience as a family lawyer, etc. But it sounds like they'll have to have the same kind of, and that's still being worked out. But certainly I think it's not going to lose out. Certainly in the family dispute resolution part, it was clear in the recommendations that that be a focus, it not be taken away from. So I'm certainly seeing that. As a mediator, I think having the skills as a mediator, full stop, are really important. You will find that it is now being translated to law schools, in social work, at university level. The idea of having mediation as part of your repertoire, whatever profession. So family dispute resolution may be a small part, but certainly becoming a mediator is way of the world. And I jokingly tell my friends that it is not, that's one thing that computer will never be able to do, because there's not going to be enough logarithms or back end that allows the computer to be a mediator, because we work with the people in front of us. Okay, we've got some start dates. We've got, we're kicking off for the second half of the year. And so July is, 1st of July is for FDRP 1. If you are a nationally accredited mediator, you don't have to kick off until FDRP 2, which is the 12th of August, and then you can see the dates there. There's 3,300 per subject. Please talk to our wonderful client services team, who can assist you with any of your questions around those kind of things. With those, you'll find that the workshops will be towards the end of August, towards the end of July, towards the end of August, probably the 23rd of September, that means October, and then towards the end of November for the last one. But you get all those dates so you know if you need to book in things. And they are run in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. So hopefully there's a location that will be closer to you that you can get in. And if you can't do one and one and you can make it into another one, certainly they're interchangeable that way. As I said, if you've got national accreditation, you hold accreditation, not just you've been trained, you have to have accreditation, then you can apply for credit for FDRP 1. If you have any questions, please feel free to schedule a chat with one of our wonderful enrolment officers, or send through an email, or if you think, yep, you've convinced me, there's all the information online for you. So I think that's great. And there's the last one. Here's all the information. If you want to talk to me, or if you want me to answer a specific question, please just send an email and mark at my attention. It will get to me. Otherwise, more than happy to touch base. Thank you for your time. And look, I look forward to meeting some of you in if not this year, certainly next year. Take care all.